Hello and welcome back, and that's right, it's time for another NAS comparison. Let's face it, it's the name of the website, it'd be weird if I didn't. Today we are looking at the new Synology DS1825 Plus and the slightly older DS1823 XS Plus, more on that later, and the now 1 year old DXP8800 Plus. Now there was a time when UGREEN wasn't in the world of NAS. About a year ago they were in it, but mainly just in China. But in the last year we have seen this brand here absolutely explode in the scene in terms of network attached storage. And for those looking for powerful and more cost-effective NAS solutions, there's several different in their portfolio. Synology, on the other hand, are a 25-year veteran in this market, with a myriad of solutions, I believe at any given time, between 15 and 25 different solutions currently supported in their hardware portfolio, a myriad of different software solutions, and ultimately the more evolved and polished platform of the two. However, the lines are getting blurred. What people expect from their data, what they want it to do, how they want to access it, and ultimately what they expect for their money has changed substantially. I hate seagulls. And that's what today's video is about. We're going to compare these in terms of hardware, storage, capability, software that works, and hopefully by the end you'll know which one best deserves your data. But let's get down to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about the old bunts, how much we are spending. Now, I mentioned earlier on that we're actually looking at another Synology NAS that will come up a little bit more later on, but I will touch on it. But for now, between these two on the table, the 1825 and the 8800 here, the Synology actually across the majority of retailers technically is the cheaper of the two, which really surprised me as well. If you look at the DS1825, you can get it for as low as $1,149 up to about $1,399. So just call it $1,400 there across the majority of retailers I could find it. That doesn't include tax, that is dollars. If you look at it in the UK and the EU, it's going to cost, or is the least displayed more because it includes VAT. And that compares quite lower in some regards than the 8800, which is 1199 up to 1499 across the majority of retailers that I could find it. It was cheaper at launch when they did their crowdfunding with a lot of early access discounts, but at least now at their base available price, the Synology is the cheaper. However, the UGREEN system is also more regularly on sale. At any time, you can look around at different retailers and find it at quite substantial discounts. B&H, for example, will give you $300 off at checkout. They've also done multiple sales over the last few months on Amazon and their own retail outlet there. So, although technically on the baseline price the Synology is cheaper, I will say keep in mind that the UGREEN at the time of searching, you might find at a lower price point. But what do you get for your money? I don't think it'll be a big surprise to anyone that's even done a cursory look into these two brands to know that the Synology platform, when you're buying it, you're chiefly buying it for the software, something we'll touch on later on. And although there is software included with the UGREEN, it is arguable that the pricing actually leverages a lot more evenly between the hardware and the software. So let's talk about the port and connectivity. On the front here, we've got the storage bays, and we will get onto storage in more precise detail later on. But at least in terms of connectivity between these, the Synology has got a USB port on the front, and that's it. We'll get onto the back in a sec, but that's your lot. The UGREEN, on the other hand, has an SD card, and that's the SD card 3.0. It also has two USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 connections, and it also has a 10 gig USB port there on the front. Now, that can be used with peripherals, it can be used with storage drives, there's a few out there. The Synology USB is pretty much only to be used with a UPS system or storage drives. It doesn't support really any other kind of dongles or accessories or anything like that. And also the USB 4 ports on this, although they are used for faster USB 4 drives, between 2 and 3,000 megabytes per second connection, so that's 2 to 3 gigabytes per second transmission, it's also worth knowing that UGREEN are getting closer to having direct compatibility supported on their system. That means that you can get like a MacBook or a Windows system with USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4, and soon on their software directly connect into this and work directly on the box for a high performance 2 to 3 gigabytes per second transfer speed for your data. Great for editing. Not available right now, but it is something that is in development, so I just thought I'd mention it. Now, if we look at the rear connections on both, there's a little bit of a scale up there on the Synology side. So for example, we've now got two 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports there. Alongside that, we've also got further USB ports. We've also got USB Type-C ports that are used for expansion devices, and we'll get onto that in the storage section. Finally, there's a PCIe upgrade slot as well that you can use for a few different PCIe upgrades available from Synology. Now on the 88, we've got two 10 gig ports. We've also got HDMI output. We've got more USB 10 gig ports. So network connectivity as well is much higher on this, but it also has a PCIe upgrade slot as well, and this supports third-party cards because they don't have any first-party cards at the moment. Synology upgrades, they've got 10 gig upgrade cards, they've got 2.5 gig upgrade, 25 gig upgrade cards. There's lots of options out there, but it's worth noting that you have to use their own cards. You have to use their proprietary supported cards. There's a broader range of upgrades for that network port here on the UGREEN, and also just a baseline connectivity across the board. From the SD card slot to the better network ports to the USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 connectivity is just better on the UGREEN system. Now, I said earlier on I'd mentioned the other Synology NAS, and that is the DS1825 XS. That arrives with a 10 gig upgrade slot. It has a 10 gig and everything else is the same in terms of connectivity, same PCIe. It's got two 1 gig ports instead of 2.5 gig, but it has 10G on board. But that system retails for $1,800 to $1,900, a huge scale up in price for 10GBE. There are other tweaks and changes that we'll chat about later on, but even if you introduce the 1823 XS Plus, in terms of ports and connectivity, this one still takes the lead. It will be easy to say that both of these systems, as they're both 8 bays, is largely the same in terms of storage. Realistically, and in some cases very unfortunately, the answer is significantly more nuanced than that. So yes, you can use SATA hard drives here, and you can get pretty large hard drives installed in both of these systems. However, as you may have heard, Synology has changed a lot of its support policy on storage media on their systems for both SSDs and hard drives, and right now at the time of recording, this 8-bay only supports Synology's own hard drives, their Synology Plus series and their Synology Enterprise Drive series in terms of hard drives, which go up to 20 TB at the moment because they use Toshiba N300 drives and Toshiba MG drives and Sega iWolf drives, but they have their own firmware on top. The result is you can't use third-party drives inside this. It won't even let you initialize the system with non-Synology labeled drives. And although some of the drives are actually pretty reasonably priced in the Plus series of drives, some of the enterprise drives, and especially the SSDs, are wildly inconsistent in their pricing, and especially the M.2 SSDs, because this has got 8 storage drives of SATA, but it's also got 2 M.2 NVMe bays tucked into the side section here. But they can only use Synology drives. And Synology drives, once again, are not only more expensive, but those M.2s are more about durability than they are performance. And with a maximum write speed of just 750 megabytes per second, they are not even maxing out the Gen 3x4 slot inside this system. It's exceedingly limited, and the scalability is still going to be locked in on their drives. Even when you migrate over from an old system, it will recognize an old hard drive array, but that hard drive array cannot be expanded, it cannot be repaired without Synology drives, tremendously limiting. Unsurprisingly, because UGREEN doesn't have a range of its own storage drives, it's heavily reliant on third-party compatibility, of which is very, very broad. I've tested all the way up to 30 terabyte hard drives in this system, and they worked. On top of that, Seagate, WD, and the rest of it they support in there. Inside, this has got 2 M.2 NVMe slots as well, but these are Gen 4x4 speed, and they support third-party drives. It means that you can install some of the more recent Gen 4 7 gigabytes per second drives inside this, and you can use them for caching and storage pools. You're not locked in to a very small number of drives that are overpriced compared to the rest in the market and lower performance compared to the rest in the market. Bottom line, the base storage potential of both of these is significantly better on the 8800 than it is on the Synology. And once you add into that, by the way, that this device here can be expanded, but you have to use their own proprietary expansions. This, on the other hand, lets you use UGREEN's own expansion DAS devices. An update coming soon will actually allow you to expand the pool, but at least right now you can attach those third-party and first-party JBOD boxes for them to be appeared and usable. Ultimately, in terms of storage, this is just bringing more to the party on day 1 and day 1000. That said, Despite the compatibility woes on this in terms of third-party drives, it is also worth remembering they have their own flexible RAID storage system known as SHR, Synology Hybrid RAID, that allows you to mix and match drives. So for example, if you put four TBs inside this device and then a few years later you wanted to add bigger hard drives as they become cheaper, you can actually absorb that larger capacity in SHR in a way that traditional RAID, what this device arrives with, cannot do. This will lock you in. Every single drive will be measured by the smallest available drive. So if I put 7 10 TB drives in here and one 1 TB, it would treat every drive as 1 TB in a way that a fluid RAID system allows you to take advantage of it. But keep in mind, you're still locked in on their drives. Now, it'd be very easy to look at the entire range of solutions from both of these brands, to look at the hardware configurations and compare them, but I think we should stick to the remit of this video and look at this 8-base hardware versus this 8-base hardware. Now, the Synology NAS arrives with the V1500B 4-core 8-thread AMD embedded Ryzen CPU. It also arrives with 8GB of memory, ECC memory for that matter as well. So a lovely little baseline hardware for virtualization and high-performance file transfers. Now, the UGREEN arrives with an Intel i5 10-core processor. That's 2 power core, 8 efficiency core. It also arrives with 8GB of DDR5 memory that could be scaled up to 64GB internally. Now, why is that important? This has a better number of cores to play with. It also has, I think it's a 12-thread processor. On top of that, the larger amount of memory for allocation towards containers and virtual machines is going to be appealing to some users. On top of that, it has integrated graphics on board, which again for things like transcoding or more graphically manipulative processes are going to be beneficial. Ultimately, in terms of file processing, this is going to use less power to get the job done, and this has a higher TDP overall, so that's in other words, how much power is going to be used per process, just overall clock power under the bonnet for utilization. This is built around performance versus efficiency, while this is based against performance and power combined. Also, there's going to be some of you that want to talk about ECC and the fact that DDR5 has on-die ECC, whereas the Synology support in true ECC is a better option. And I think that is very true. ECC is something Synology have taken very, very seriously for stability and consistency in-house with their platform. And ECC in many businesses is a pretty much deal breaker for some. On-die is great, but it's about data passing through the memory and just overall processing within the memory and outside the memory in terms of consistency on the write. Ultimately, the hardware is better in 2025 here on the UGREEN. But the thing that stands out for that Synology is that support of ECC, I think, for most users. Now, if we look at the XS series, that 1823XS, that arrives again with a 4-core 8-thread processor. It's a slightly more newer, scaled-up version of the AMD embedded Ryzen, the 1780B, but it's still a very similar architecture in terms of clock speed and ability, a little higher, of course, but it does still support ECC memory there with that added extra 10G port. Overall, it's still a win compared to both of those Synology devices in terms of internal base hardware here on the UGREEN, but it really is about what you want for your money and what you want your data to be doing. Talking about what your data is doing, we've got to talk about software, and this is where the money is when it comes to the Synology platform. You can be annoyed about the hard drive and SSD compatibility, and damn so am I. You can be annoyed about the base level hardware, a lot of their systems feeling very lackluster to other options in the market, not just UGREEN, and you know what, you'd have a point. But Synology's software platform isn't just better than UGREEN's right now. 25 years of experience is shining through it. It's one of the most fully featured NAS platforms in the market in terms of what you want to do, in terms of client applications available to you for your operating system of choice, the baseline applications that are included with the system, multi-tiered backup operations with ABB, Active Backup Suite, that can synchronize with cloud and SaaS services, as well as local level backups with Hyper Backup. You can look at the Synology Office application, Synology Drive application, Synology Chat application that are giving you real-world alternatives to third-party cloud-based apps in the market that you might be using that is all included with this price. Surveillance station that allows you to have a bespoke and top-end surveillance solution running on this for multiple cameras available from both Synology and third parties running within this ecosystem. Their own multimedia applications, AI photo recognition applications, virtual machine application there. It's all bundled with the solution in that price, and it feels great. It doesn't support ZFS, But when it comes to snapshots, write once, read many, security scanners internally inside the system, this thing is an absolute behemoth. Alongside that, with the brand investing heavily in security services and regular platform investigations with things like bounty programs, investing in things like Pwn to Own, pen testing on their systems, just security checks throughout the system's activation and utilization cannot be underestimated. UGREEN have only been in the Western NAS market for a year and only been in the NAS market since about 2020, 2021. So it's not a short amount of time, but it pales in comparison to the Synology. And although the software feels responsive and nails down a number of the fundamentals, recently adding things like iSCSI and multi-factor authentication, it will still feel underwhelming compared to the Synology DSM platform overall. It's good, and it does support third parties, by the way, with unrated and TrueNAS being installable on this without invalidating your hardware warranty. But nonetheless, in terms of software for what you're paying, you just got to bow down to DSM. And that's really it. It may sound as easy to just say it's hardware versus software, but it isn't. The lines are getting blurred all the time. Whether it is Synology taking their foot off the gas in terms of hardware, allowing everyone to catch up, or the fact that their software platform is becoming increasingly more in-house, it has allowed brands like UGREEN to start closing the gap substantially and make them less just about a hardware proposition, but an actual combined turnkey solution. Now, as a turnkey solution, is it better than the UGREEN? Probably not, to be honest, because although the hardware is lackluster, that software for many and the history and the legacy of Synology in terms of security, stability and feature set is just going to be unbeatable. There's a reason when you look online that people love this brand, and also why they were so pissed when the brand made such erratic changes to its hard drive and SD support. If you can swallow those, if you can get past those, this will keep going for you. There are people still running original 2010 generations of this system, the 8-bay, still running to this day with regular updates, maybe curbing in the last few years, but at the very least feeling like this is a robust, fairly bulletproof platform compared to options in the market. However, it's just not cutting edge for many. And if the hardware support is what you care about, if what you care about is value for money, and what you care about is getting a solution that is a real powerhouse, this is the one for you. Even if you compare it against that $1,800 1823XS Plus, there's a reason UGREEN have been exploding on the scene, and there's a reason why these solutions are growing popular, because as a hardware software combined turnkey solution, it is really, really competitive, and why right now, just a year after its launch on Kickstarter, we are talking about them and comparing them against the 25-year vets. But what do you guys think? Do you own either of these? Have you migrated from one to the other? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video helpful, there should be a written guide in the description as well as links to reviews and guides on both of these platforms below. If you found it helpful, if you're going to buy one of them, and if you want to go to one of the stores linked below, please use those links to do so. Using those links will result in a small commission coming here to NAS Compares, and allows me and Eddie to keep doing what we do. We don't really do the whole like and subscribe thing. We don't dodge and chase for donations, but if you find this advice helpful and you want to support what we do, just using those links is the most passive way you can do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.